今天我们要讨论的是声旁。声旁 are phonetic elements. Now, most people do not think of Chinese as being a phonetic language, and we'll talk about that. But what does phonetic mean? Well, phonetic means that it sounds the way it looks. So if you look at the first example there, it's Japanese. It says Ohayo gozaimasu. That is exactly the way it's written. So once you learn those letters in Japanese, you can pronounce it exactly correctly. Let's take a look at the English below that. NO in English is pronounced no, but DO is pronounced do. So clearly, English is not a phonetic language. That is, a non-English speaker reading those two words would assume that they're pronounced the same. If English were phonetic, no and do, or nu and do, but not no and do. Another example is enough. Looking at that, how on earth would you know that GH is pronounced as an F sound? So English is not, strictly speaking, completely phonetic, although in some instances it is, but a lot of the vowels change the way they sound depending upon the word they're in. Now, how do most Chinese characters come about? The Chinese characters that are in use today, 85% are made up of a radical and a phonetic element. Let's take a look at how a character came about. So a long time ago, there was a character for woman, yu, and a character for horse, ma, and there was a spoken word for mother, ma, but there was no character for the word mother. So how did they create a new character? Well, they took the meaning element, the woman element, and they took the sound from horse and they combined them. And they got the character for mother, ma. Another example, the question particle, ni hao ma, right? That ma, again, they had a spoken word, but they did not have a character. So they took a radical, the ko, the mouth radical, which is used with a lot of particles, and the same sound element, ma for horse, and they got ma. So these two characters were created after those other characters existed. And in fact, as I said, 85% of characters in use today are made up of a radical and a phonetic element. So this is very common that you see that structure in Chinese characters, particularly those in use today. But you have to keep in mind that phonetic elements are not reliable. They're not consistent in Chinese. And we'll take a look at an example in a second. But even though you think you know the phonetic element, it's not 100%. And the other thing, the original character ma is third tone. But ma, mother, is first tone. So these phonetic elements carry no tonal information. You don't know anything about the tone, even if you get the phonetic element correct. So let's take a look at this example. What do you see here? You see lots of characters, and they all share a phonetic element, specifically that character, they all share that element. That character is pronounced ching, ching, right, first tone. And these other characters are all pronounced similarly. For example, the one next to it is pronounced ching. Going over, next one is pronounced ching. Next one is pronounced ching. And last one in the first row is pronounced ching. So you see they're all pronounced ching with varying tones. Second row also ching. But when we get down to the third row, the first character there is pronounced jing. The second one is pronounced jing. Third one, jing. Fourth one, jing. And the last one in that third row is jing. And the bottom row also. All of those characters are pronounced jing, again with varying tones. So although you can see that the phonetic element is all the same, what varies in the characters is the radicals, different radicals, so completely different meanings. So is Chinese a phonetic language? Well, yes and no. A lot of the characters in the use today have phonetic elements. Most of the characters, 85% of the characters in common use today have phonetic elements, but the phonetic elements are not consistent. They're not reliable. So although they came about as a result of phonetics, at some point in time, the pronunciation of some of them has changed. Let's take a look at another example of characters we mostly know. First character, top row, gong, gong. Second one, also gong. Third one, hong. And fourth one, kong. So they all, you can see they all have that sound element, but they're pronounced differently, although you can hear the similarity. Next example, ke, ke, ge, ge, and he. So again, same sound element, but k, h, g, slightly different sound. So a lot of phonetic elements in Chinese, something to pay attention to when you're learning characters, and sometimes they can help you guess the pronunciation, but not always, and they won't help you with the tones.